let's just fucking do it. Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Worcester, aka Zazubaar. Wow, that was an old school one. Hello, everyone. Like I did like a really like high school era Bill Worcester like little
you
intro
forgot
there.
you forgot the clap of the hands and hello.
God damn it! Yeah, I forgot the clap. There we go. I got it in there. So what's going on, kids? David and I are here to do a new series for you. Well, it's sort of a new version of an old series, isn't it? We used to do this back in the day. Why don't you tell us the origins of this?
Back at what I refer to as classic SOS, we used to do this thing called Lost, Found, but Never Filmed.
And during the ZGC monthly reviews era. This is pre-SOS. Like, this is like back in 2011, 2012. Oh
god, that's insane how like enough time has passed for us.
No, it wasn't 2011. It was 2012. But yes, it is crazy how much time has passed and how long we've known each other. You and I have known each other for 5 years, half a decade. It's crazy.
We were like the first two pre-SOS members.
This is an old school video you and I are doing right now. That's partially why I wanted to do this. You know, I'm trying to sort of get back to my YouTube roots now that I have some more free time on my hands. I'm trying to. What?
You didn't get fired, did you?
No. Well, there's other reasons, but we won't get into this. It's not about that, man. It's about the nostalgia. This is what Hollywood does all the time, bro. They fucking bring back a nostalgic property. They put a new fresh coat of paint on it. They hype people up about how great it's gonna be because of how cool the old thing was, which is what we're doing, right? Lost, Found, but Never Filmed was the shit. So we're going to bring it back with exactly that same name, but instead of doing
we're going to add the subtitle The Force Awakens to this.
The David Awakens, son, which is also a nostalgic, like, classic reference to an actual SOS episode. So what would you call that era? That was like a year ago. What era of SOS would you refer to that as? Like SOS, like the Bronze Age?
Bronze?
Well, so I thought you were doing like some like comic book era shit. Like classic would be like the Golden Age, right? So modern age would be like the Bronze Age, right? Do you not read comics? Like, do you not know this? Like,
it's been a while since I read comics. I think the last comic I read was the.
Well, did you read a comic during the Bronze Age? Because the Bronze Age is actually over now, but it was like the age when we were kids, like 90s, 2000s. The aughts as they're known now.
I'm not sure because I read when I was a kid, I read like a variety of different comics from different periods. Like I would read one from like the Golden Age, the Bronze Age, or the at the time Contemporary Age, which was what I mainly read because
that would have been the Bronze Age. The Middle Age is the Silver Age. The Silver Age is like the 60s and shit.
Oh.
So the Bronze Age is like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Like that's when that's our heyday, son. Like then
we should just refer to our eras as the Showa periods and the Heisei periods.
We should stick with what we know. This is not relevant. This is all just fluff to fucking fill out the fucking top of the video here. So David and I have known each other for a long time is the point of all this bullshit. And one thing that I have always fucking been fascinated about David over, one thing that has captured my imagination, is that he has an encyclopedic knowledge of scripts for things that have never been shot, ideas that have been scrapped, movies that have never been made, things that were lost, things that have been found, but where they've never been filmed. And a popular example of this, well, one old school one that old school fucking people in retirement homes and shit will know is Stanley Kubrick's Napoleon movie. That's an old school one. Like that's one that film fucking professors will refer to as like a movie that was supposed to happen but never did. We actually talked about that one on Lost, Found, but Never Filmed. Adam brought that one up back in the day. That's how long ago that was.
I mean, something like that I could easily find online because that's like the most thing that's covered.
I have zero interest in that though, so let's not. I just brought it up as a popular example, but let's bring up an even more popular example, something more contemporary. Superman Lives. You and I have talked about that before. Kevin Smith.
Oh yeah.
Then Kevin Smith wrote the initial draft. Before that, the project was called Superman Reborn, which there are also scripts for.
Which I also have.
Oh, you have those too. Well, look at that. I've never read those. Apparently, but I mean, Kevin Smith said that those were really bad. Have you read them, or do you just have them?
I have not read Reborn, but I have read his first draft for Superman Lives.
I started to. It's not bad. It's pretty solid. He's clearly got his hands tied behind his back in a lot of ways, but it's still really enjoyable. I mean, he always knows how to make, like, he knows how to keep you engaged, at the very least. But that's a popular example from the more contemporary age. Godzilla movies, obviously, there's a lot of examples of this. We'll probably talk about all of them on this show. Gamera, too. There's a whole bunch of unmade Gamera movies. Gamera versus Garasharp. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we obviously have some shit to say about that hasn't been made. And David, basically the way this show is going to break down is you are going to bring these scripts to us because I have no time to read them, and you are going to, and you obviously don't have to read the whole things. Just come to us with the rough sort of summary stories of how these things were going to go down, and we will talk about whether or not they would have been any fucking good. This is the pilot episode. We don't really know how exactly this show's going to work yet. We haven't done it as a long, actual single podcast yet. So we'll figure out how many scripts we're going to do per episode as we go. I have one that I read, at least the beginning of, that we'll talk about towards the end. But for now, yeah, I only read the first, 15 or 20 pages. So for now, David, what's the first thing you got for us tonight?
Okay, I know you didn't want to. You said not Godzilla 94 because that's the easiest thing to choose from.
That's the popular kaiju example, isn't it? But you're gonna do it anyway, aren't you?
No.
Oh.
I thought about it, and then I thought, why don't we discuss the American Godzilla before the American Godzilla?
Oh, King of the Monsters 3D.
Yeah, the Steve Miner Godzilla.
Oh, all right, yeah, totally. I've only touched on this a little bit in some podcasts here and there, but yeah, totally. I haven't read this one, but I imagine you have.
Oh, I have. Oh, I read the day that I found it because for me this was like the holy grail because it's very difficult to find scripts from the 80s, especially those that were unproduced. And Godzilla King of the Monsters 3D is one of those examples.
Well,
if anything,
it's pre the digital age, so that people weren't saving this shit on hard drives. It was all just typewriters and handwritten shit. So I mean, yeah, I imagine what you're looking at are scans or some kind of transcript.
Yeah, it's basically a scan, but it's readable.
That's all you need, right?
Yeah, as long as it's readable, then I don't care if it's a goddamn scan.
Yeah, totally.
It could be engraved on a fucking stone for all I care, as long as it's readable.
Fucking that scene from Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade where he fucking transcribes the fucking stone tablet on that sheet of paper. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I've completed it.
Or like Moses just bringing the fucking Ten Commandments written on stone
down from Mount Hera. Oh yeah, totally.
Except in this case, it's the entire Godzilla script on 2 stones.
Yeah, speaking of Indiana Jones, there's some killer Indiana Jones scripts that haven't been shot too that we should talk about at some point.
All right, the Frank Darabont script, the City of the Gods, which I also have but have not read.
There you go. Is that the Atlantis one? But there's another Atlantis one, isn't there?
I'm not sure if the same one because I have not read the Frank Darabont script yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. We'll do that down the road.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to the topic again. Godzilla King of the Monsters in 3D. So let me just lay out my interpretation of this before you tell me what it actually is, because I've never read this, as I mentioned, and more than that, everything I have ever seen or heard about this movie does not make me have any interest in looking any more into it, because to me it looks like 98 before 98, and I know that it's not exactly like that. The character that's in the script is a little bit more like Godzilla. Atomic breath is there. The atomic energy is present. If anything, it's more like Gorgo. And that's the thing. That's the thing that always fascinated me about it, is that it was always sort of more of a Gorgo type thing, but sort of a darker version of Gorgo, which is cool. So, not that I was like, oh, it's garbage, but I was never like, oh, yeah, I gotta read that. That sounds awesome to me. I always wanted to get into the Godzilla scripts that I always thought were cool, like the Wolfman. Although that was a fan film, not a script. But I always wanted to get my hands on Godzilla versus Frankenstein. The original script for King Kong versus Godzilla. King Kong versus Frankenstein, like stuff, anything with Frankenstein in it. That's what I wanted. But David, that's my perception of it. My perception of it is that it's 98 before 98. It's a big dumb lizard that's called Godzilla, looking around for the murderers of its kid or its kid in general. Dumb animal shit. Not really Godzilla. Tell me why I'm wrong.
You're not that far off, and here's the difference where King
God
of the
damn
Monsters.
it! Why couldn't you let me live in a fantasy world? Nah.
Well, here's the difference between where 98 and King of the Monsters 3D differentiate from. In a way, they are kind of similar, especially how Godzilla discovers his offspring. In King of the Monsters 3D, there's only one offspring,
Right?
Where in 98 there were 200 apparently.
Yeah, well, in 98, it's more of like a brooding, reproduction type of thing. In this, it's more of a Gorgo, like, oh, that's my son. We have a very long-standing familial bond. It's not so much like, oh, I have to go lay my eggs and shit. So, I wonder why Gorgo, though, do you think? Why the Gorgo sort of homage, if not ripoff?
Actually, it's funny that you bring that up because I forgot who it was. I think it was the director, Steve Miner, or the writer, Fred Decker. First and foremost, the script is based on a story by Steve Miner, and the screenplay is 100% written by Fred Decker, who is currently writing the screenplay for the next Predator movie.
Oh, along with Shane Black.
Yeah.
Fred Decker also wrote...
And he also wrote the Monster Squad.
The Monster Squad, yeah. He's great. I love him. Oh, see, okay, so maybe this is better than I give it credit for. You've sent this to me before, right? But it was probably on my old laptop. Can you actually Google Drive this to me again? After we get off the call, along with the other thing I asked you for?
Yeah.
Awesome. You're the best.
Yeah, the other thing.
Yeah, and the other thing. So Steve Miner was not only the director, though. He was also the special effects director, right? He designed the Godzilla.
I think... No, wait. I think it was William Stout who did designs for...
Oh, okay.
Because Steve Miner, he... this was supposed to be interpret Godzilla from a Western point of view. So Steve Miner felt...
Very clearly.
Yeah, because they wanted to portray Godzilla as more of a dinosaur.
Obviously.
And when you look at those designs, he clearly looks more dinosaurian than, as a big lumbering humanoid reptile like he does in the Toho film.
It annoys me because most of it is fine. It's literally just how skinny he is and just how he sort of sits like a raptor. Like he doesn't sit like a T-Rex. Okay. He sits more like a raptor with like the arms perked up.
I can see that in some instances.
Almost meerkat-esque, if you will. And I don't like that because he doesn't look intimidating. He looks like he has that Zilla like sort of sleekness that sort of makes him like not creepy. Creepy would be fine. It's not. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Serpentine and almost sort of sneaky. And Godzilla's not supposed to be sneaky. Godzilla doesn't have to be sneaky, right?
It's funny. In the Godzilla '94 script, they kind of gave him abilities where he was he had like these stealth abilities, so he was able to crawl on all fours.
Fuck that. Do you like that? How do you feel about shit like that?
I personally don't mind as long as they stick to the spirit of Godzilla. That's why I didn't mind Shin Godzilla, because despite all the crazy abilities they gave him in that film, he was still Godzilla.
Yeah, but they do it for a very clear reason in that. Like, it's totally... Like, what they're doing is very much so kind of put on Front Street. Like, we're doing a modern, like, what if Godzilla was done now? Like, what if he was created now? Like, and they did the first movie now. Like, that's what that movie is, and that's why that works. But, and I guess from a certain point of view, maybe that's what these people are thinking. Steve Miner, Terry Rossio, who wrote Godzilla 94, they're thinking, yes, there is this long-standing franchise that I have to sort of be respectful to and sort of be a slave to. But I should also sort of react to, because this is the first American Godzilla movie, I should also sort of act like this is the first Godzilla movie, the first one ever made. I get that from a certain point of view, but it's not true, though. It's a lie. It's not the first Godzilla movie, though. And if you're going to flip those expectations, you have to do it for a very specific reason. It can't just be on a whim. And I think that Shin Godzilla, it's not a whim. And in this script to me, and as well as some of the stuff in 94, it feels like it's more of like a whim because, we're Westerners making a Godzilla movie, so whatever. But, David, let's get into the dirty details, shall we? Or is there anything else you wanted to sort of say before we get into what actually happens in the script?
Before we do get into it, Rick Baker was actually involved with the development of this project.
It probably would have been fine then. God damn it.
I think he created this animatronic head for Godzilla because before this ever got off the ground, which never happened, Steve Miner and the people behind this, they were trying to gather enough of a presentation to basically woo producers into producing this film.
And that's why it didn't happen, right? Because
it didn't happen.
They just didn't have producers for it. They just couldn't get the money together.
Yeah, because apparently they thought that Godzilla was something of a children's franchise, and they just didn't want to invest money into something like that.
I mean, in 1980, it was 1980, right? Like, what year was this exactly?
The early 80s.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, that's what Godzilla movies were in America, certainly. I mean, Godzilla, the Hanna-Barbera show was only a couple years prior.
Right. I think that when Steve Miner gave up on this film, the rights reverted to Toho back in 83 or 84, which allowed them to then make Godzilla 84.
Oh, so Godzilla 84 happened that year because they didn't have the rights to do it because America was trying to do their own.
Yeah, they were trying to basically... I
had no idea. Wow.
Yeah. So I think this took place between, 1980 and 1983, 84. It was the early 80s when they were trying to,
So 80 to 83 we're going to have to guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the exact date is probably in my Godzilla book, Japan's Favorite Monster, because one of the things I love about that book is that it goes into so much detail about things like these, like King of the Monsters in 3D. The author of that book, Steve Reifel, he even interviewed the director and the writer, and they talk so much about this film in particular. It's very, very interesting. And I can't remember half of the information that they were talking about. But I remember that Fred Decker was kind of condescending towards the Toho series.
Oh, well, fuck that then.
Yeah, well, he admitted that he's not a fan. He felt like he preferred King Kong over Godzilla because he felt like King Kong was a character, but Godzilla was more of a special effect, which he's not wrong, but there's something about Godzilla that made it.
I disagree. I mean, I think that there is a character to Godzilla. It's just it's a little bit more. There's a lot more to it than I think there's more to Godzilla than Kong, which I think makes him harder to write because he can't interact with people on any level. That's the thing. That's the issue.
Like
exactly. Kong can interact with people. That's the issue. Well, I mean, and even depending on your Kong movie, like even in Skull Island, like he's 100 feet tall, like he still interacts with people, but it's not on the same level that he has, he has in other movies. So that's the issue that people bump into with Godzilla, and I think that's the thing that cripples writers, and I think that that's what sort of, I know that Fred Decker is saying, oh, he's not a character. He is. He just can't. You can't relate that in the same way through interactions with people. It's a lot more like people just sort of react to him and whatever he does, he just sort of does stuff and people just sort of interpret it. That's sort of the way you got to do it, which is how Shin does it, and 84, and all of the best Godzilla movies do it. So,
it's funny.
God damn it, you fucking taunted me into another rant about why Godzilla is good and people are wrong for not liking it. I hate it when I do that. I sound like such an asshole. Anyway, go on.
It's funny that you bring that up because reading this script, Fred Decker really struggles with Godzilla, and I'm not sure if it's because of Steve Miner's treatment or Fred Decker himself, but he writes Godzilla off as just like this big lumbering dinosaur that breathes fire. I mean, compared to '98, King of the Monsters 3D is more faithful to the Toho Godzillas in many ways because remember when in '98 where Godzilla rose beneath Madison Square Garden and found its offspring dead?
Yeah.
It is for some reason it just chose to chase the humans. In this version, they have a similar scene where Godzilla finds its offspring dead, and instead of finding someone to blame and kill them, it just goes on a rampage in San Francisco. So that sequence completely turns into a Toho Godzilla film.
Right. I mean, his motivation is obviously very different from the original Godzilla, and it's a lot more clear. It's a lot more Hollywood. It's a lot more like, here's this basic drive motivation, and I guess it from a certain perspective you can argue that it's better, but it's not nearly as fucking interesting as the original Godzilla's whole origin of he was mutated and fucking and horribly affected by the bomb, and his anger and his dissonance with humanity over what they're doing has caused him to sort of get territorial, and he goes on a rampage against them to show them that they need to fuck off. Right. That's way more interesting to me. But the thing is, this sort of has that. It's just not. It's a lot more like. Again, it's a lot more Hollywood. It's a lot more like, well, you killed my son, so I'm gonna kill you all. Like, it's a lot more like sort of basic. But it works. It totally works. The radiation is still present, though, right?
It's present, but I feel like it. Well, again, like since this is a Western interpretation of it, it kind of dances around the subject of radiation because.
Well, so why is it there if there's no bomb? Because there's no bomb, right?
It kind of is. Well, this is how the bomb plays into the plot of the film. Okay, the movie opens with this satellite that has these nuclear missiles on it. It's struck by a meteor, and suddenly the satellite crashes into the ocean, which causes this chasm to open and unleash Godzilla and its offspring.
That's not bad. Okay.
And later on, we found out that this Russian submarine has gone missing. And,
I love that in a Godzilla movie. I wonder if they took that for 84, because, I mean, obviously that's kind of how 84... That's how the whole thing goes. It's like, we're missing Russian submarines.
I think they took elements from this script and applied it to 84 because
That's what it sounds like to me, yeah.
There is a Super X aircraft in this film.
Is it called the Super X?
No, it's not called the Super X, but the script refers to it as this high-tech military aircraft, which sounds like the Super X.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, does it operate? How well do they describe it? Does it sort of operate the same way, like hovering and missiles and The big deal with the Super X is that it's supposed to be an anti-radiation tool. Like, it's supposed to, if the capital gets attacked by a nuclear strike, it's supposed to go up there and clean up the mess and sort of deal out damage to whoever fucking fucked with whoever launched the missile. Because it sort of works against radiation with the cadmium. Is it like that? Is it specifically for against radiation, or is it just this is a really big mean plane?
Honestly, I forgot. I'm trying to find the page where.
God damn it!
Because I have the script right now.
To be fair, I should explain this. David didn't know we were actually going to record this tonight. He just thought we were going to plan this. I didn't prepare him to have to come on here and fucking. And fucking be all prepared and shit, but that's fine. Whatever you got in your head is cool, and you can fucking look things up. It's fine. So
I'm looking through these pages and I'm seeing the same thing over and over again. The S9 Hornet, that might be the name. I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
That sounds a lot more Hollywood, helicopter. It sounds more like a helicopter type of thing. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Just thought it was interesting. Well, what role does it play in the story, though? Do you remember? Like does it kill Godzilla?
It's the vehicle. It's the aircraft that carries the missile that kills Godzilla.
Oh.
And another thing, spoilers. In '98, Godzilla's killed by.
I think we're good on that. Like, we're gonna spoil the shit out of all these, right? Like, I don't want to avoid spoilers. Like, these things never got shot, so fuck it. Yeah, totally spoil the shit out of it.
In '98, how Godzilla died by having missiles hit him. In this one, Godzilla dies with the missile being shot down his throat.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean that's like GMK.
Yeah.
Wow.
Basically. Because they do shoot missiles at him, but they bounce off his skin.
So they also maintain that he's indestructible. So yeah, the characterization. You know what? Do you know what this sounds like to me? The Hanna-Barbera Godzilla. Like, all aesthetically, like, yeah, all the aesthetic, like, basic Godzilla stuff is there. He's indestructible. He breathes fire, something hot, right? Like, that's all you need. It doesn't have to be atomic breath, which is what it's supposed to be, not fire. Just pure radiation. I mean, that was the idea from the get-go. It wasn't like, oh, we need fire. He wasn't supposed to be a fire-breathing dragon. He was supposed to be this big nuclear lizard, and
I think that's how Westerners see Godzilla, though, as this fire-breathing beast.
He's not, though. He wasn't. Dragon was never part of the idea. He was always supposed to be like a sea creature. And they just nailed on dinosaur because dinosaurs were fucking insanely popular in the 50s. So those two, like, dragon was never the idea. It was always sea dinosaur. That was always the idea. And then when they decided that, like, oh, nuclear radiation was going to be the origin, well, that was always the idea. They were like, we need some kind of visual manifestation of it. That was where the atomic breath came in. It was never fire. It was never, oh, we need something hot to shoot out of his mouth. It was, oh, we need to be able to see the radiation at some points. That way we have, like, a potent sort of symbol for it. All right, well, we'll have him shoot pure radiation out of his mouth. Like, when you see it in 54, often it's not a beam. The beam doesn't become a thing until, I guess that you see a little bit of it in Raids Again. But it's not even really a thing until King Kong versus Godzilla. And even in King Kong versus Godzilla, it's still like this it's more of like this misty sort of spray, right?
Right.
So it's more of like a haze of radiation. So you don't really get the proper beam until like Ghidra. Well, Ghidra, he doesn't even use it that much.
But like, basically, that's where he starts using the full-on beam.
I guess it wasn't until Heisei when they sort of really go, it's not like a misty sort of heat. It's a beam. It's a pure beam of radioactive power. Right. Okay. But we keep
kind of ironic because after Godzilla, that's how every monster movie and show approach the beam abilities for their monsters.
It's always fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Gamera completely has fire.
Yongari.
Who else?
I mean, Reptilicus was the only one that really changed the tide. They
did that with the American release. I think the Danish version didn't have the
Oh. Well, the Danish version. Oh, the Danish version exists. I'm crazy.
That's a thing. It has a musical too.
Oh my god, Yongari is the thing that does the original the South Korean version of that doesn't exist, right?
Oh, that thing's completely lost now. The only version available is the AIP English version.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the only way that the Koreans can view it too. Through the English.
That's what's nuts. Yeah, like that's crazy to me. I'm sure it's somewhere in South Korea, somewhere in Seoul or wherever.
I mean, imagine if somebody lost the prince to the original Godfather, and suddenly we had to rely on like the Japanese version.
Yeah, that'd be nuts. There's no other counterexample of that for America, I don't think. Like there's no way. Anyway, so back to King of the Monsters. So what's the human story like? So like what? Here's my question: how long does it take to see Godzilla? Do we ever see the offspring alive early on, like in Gorgo?
No, actually,
it just pops up dead mysteriously, right?
Yeah. Like at first the first scene we see it alive is through a video where the main character, I think his name is Daxon. It's this guy that
what the fuck kind of name is Dax? Is it his first name or last name?
I think it's his last name.
Oh,
and
okay.
He's a secret agent with the U.S. government. Okay, to describe this movie, it's basically James Bond meets Godzilla.
Okay, that's kind of cool. So tell me more. So the main character is a secret agent. That's step number one in making me actually interested in this.
Yeah, Daxton is his name. Daxton.
And he's the protagonist.
He's one of them. The other the other protagonist is a scientist who's,
Okay.
I guess he was supposed to be played by Jeff Goldblum because that's the way how this character comes off to me.
Oh, that's awesome. I love everything about the way that sounds.
He's the second principal character, and Daxton is basically James Bond with an eye patch, and he has a kid, and the kid has a pet lizard who, well, I think you know where I'm going with this. He sympathizes with Godzilla because of the pet lizard.
Daxton does.
No, his kid.
Oh,
I forgot.
his kid does.
Yeah.
Well, what difference does that make? Does the kid play into the Godzilla stuff later on?
Well, okay, you remember in Gamera where the kid thought that his little turtle turned into Gamera? The same thing happens here. He loses
right, in the original. There's because that happens in 2 Gamera movies, remember? That happens in the original, and then that also happens in Super Monster.
To be fair, I've only seen Super Monster twice, where I've seen the original.
I've only seen it once.
I had to see it the second time when I had to buy the Blu-rays. Because I was like, I bought the Blu-ray, so I can't just, waste money and not watch all of these.
Anyway. So the kid thinks that his lizard turned into Godzilla.
At one point in the script, he does think that. I think it's near the third act when Godzilla enters San Francisco.
Well, why? Does the lizard die?
Another thing about the James Bond element here is that Daxton, he has this arch rival, some Russian.
Okay.
He kidnaps the kid.
Oh, that's how the kid gets involved. Okay.
Yeah, he kidnaps the kid at one point to lure out Daxton, and the kid and the lizard eventually escape.
Oh my God! So the lizard gets kidnapped as well?
I mean, because he's with the kid.
Well, sure, but why wouldn't the guy just be like, "All right, get this out of here"? It's a
to
fucking
be fair,
lizard.
It's been a while since I've read the script. I think it was like around 2000, before 2014 came out. I knew I read it in that time because everyone was on the 2014 hype.
Fair enough.
And someone, by some miracle, managed to find the script and put it up online, and I managed to download it before someone took it down. I don't think they did though. It just it was a precaution.
Who would give a fuck? Like it's like, oh, the script for this Godzilla movie nobody even knew was going to be a thing.
Yeah, and and there's this. Odo Island is in this movie.
What? Oh, Odo
Yeah.
Island. Oh, I thought Infant Island for a second, and I was like,
No,
whoa, Odo Island. Okay, that's cool. That's actually a really cool nod that they would even bother to include that.
Yeah, there's this character who's kind of like the asshole of the movie. He's not the main villain, but he's like one of the antagonists that the Jeff Goldblum character, he plays a character named Ballinger, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Okay.
And Daxton Haight, he's basically one of those generic military Boy Scout characters.
Okay.
McDermott, that's his name, McDermott. He goes to Odo Island to investigate these mysterious things that have been happening on the island, and that's where I don't know if they encountered Godzilla or the
People
babe.
have been tipping cows.
Yeah, but they find one of them. I don't know if it's Godzilla or the baby because the script never specifies, but it cuts away before you see the monster. It's all the scene describes as a shadow approaches, and then they turn around and see the monster, and then boom, it cuts to the next scene. So McDermott knows that Godzilla is a thing out there, but Daxton doesn't realize that Godzilla exists until he finds the missing Russian submarine, because they're actually trying to find the nukes for that submarine because the Russians are.
So what happens is, whose satellite crashes into the ocean that wakes up the Godzillas?
It was just a random satellite.
They don't say whether it's Russian or U.S. I mean, it's got to be one of those two.
Hold on, let me bring up that first.
That's
page.
crucial. That's crucial. Not that I'm criticizing you. You'd have, because in '84, obviously that was a big point of controversy. Because in the original script, not in the original script, in the original Japanese version, fucking the Russians are trying to stop the missile that they accidentally shot at Godzilla.
I think it's an American satellite because
Oh wow, that's interesting. That we
because NORAD HQ are the ones who first detect the satellite crashing down onto the planet.
No, well, I mean that doesn't mean that they did it. I mean that just means that they detected it. But I mean that would make sense. That's interesting. I mean, in an American movie though, I mean in '84, remember in the American version, the Russians purposely launched the missile at Godzilla. They changed that. So I'm amazed that in this script, it's our nukes that get. I mean, it is like an accident, obviously. Like it's not like like one of us was like, we're gonna launch some nukes, and then that wakes up Godzilla. That would have been fucking fascinating. Rather, it's just an accident, like a freak of nature. Yeah. So here's one question: why is there lightning in space? You said that's what does it, right? A lightning strikes the satellite.
No, a meteor.
Oh, a meteor. Okay, that makes sense. So a meteor strikes the satellite, and then the bombs fall.
Yeah.
Amazingly, they don't blow up before they fucking hit the ocean floor.
Or it might have gone differently. Like I said, it's been a while since I read the script.
Fair enough.
Because I was gonna read it because I thought today we were planning the video. I didn't think we were actually recording.
It's all good. It's all good. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
But yeah, the script still paints the Russians as the bad guys, which makes sense because
thank God.
The 80s, Red Dawn happened.
Rocky 4 happened.
Rocky 4.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how does the spy element... So the spy element constitutes the first, 20 minutes of the movie or so. So at what point does the Russian sub go missing?
I think, the first, 30 pages or so, because the spy element is throughout the entire script. What Fred Decker wanted to do is he wanted to maintain a subplot that would have been interesting even without Godzilla. That's why I feel like this script is best described as James Bond meets Godzilla.
Which is that's a good idea in theory, but I mean obviously you want them, but I mean that's kind of weird though, because it's like, well, you want the human stuff to be reacting to Godzilla. So right. That's problematic. But I get what he means.
Right.
You can't write that's writing them as two separate things then, and that's what kills most bad Godzilla movies. What's a good example of that? Fucking Battle for Earth. There's 3 different stories going on at once in that movie. And that's why that movie does not work. Because, these things just sort of happen randomly, and then they all sort of crop their heads at different points. They don't feel connected, and it just turns into this giant mess of a movie. I know you like Battle for Earth. I'm sorry, David, but it's a bad movie.
I mean, I like it better than Megaguirus.
Oh
but
my god! I mean, Megaguirus is garbage. So anyway, I don't know. I get what he means. I'm glad that hopefully that means, is it a good spy story? Do you remember?
I mean, I felt intrigued because surprisingly, the character Daxton, he doesn't feel like the typical cliche action hero. He doesn't
he's got
feel
a kid. That's automatically 10 times more interesting. He's like John Travolta in Face Off.
Yeah, he feels very humanized. He doesn't feel like Rambo.
He's not Bond, where he's like a machine. Because Bond is obviously not just a normal guy. Bond is this is a guy who is living on the absolute edge.
Right.
This guy is... Most American secret agents are trying to live an actual life on top of being a secret agent. Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies.
Or Commando, even though that movie emphasizes...
but he's not a secret agent in that. He's just a fucking commando. But but more than that, you're right. He wasn't on duty when he had the kid. Right.
It's a funny thing because his ex-wife is dating Ballinger, Jeff Goldblum's character.
Oh, interesting.
So that's how those characters interconnect with each other.
Interesting. So Ballinger is the scientist, right?
Yeah, he's because every Godzilla movie needs to have a scientist.
Well, what kind of scientist is he? Do you remember? A biologist, a paleontologist?
I think he's a paleontologist because they specifically bring him to study the dead baby Godzilla.
So when do they find that? What's the circumstances of that?
I was getting to this. Daxton was trying to find the Russian sub so they can retrieve the nukes, he finds that one of the nukes is missing, and so on the sub he finds this video of I'm assuming it's the baby Godzilla that takes one of the nukes, and
That's kind of cool.
I guess that's the thing that kills the baby Godzilla because eventually it washes on.
The nuke kills
on,
it?
Yeah, the nuke kills it.
Did the nuke blow up?
I guess so because remember these.
Did they eat radiation? These Godzillas?
I think so because they came up from the Earth's crust because okay, in the beginning of the film where when the nukes crashed onto the ocean, it cracked open the sea floor and according to the script, a reptilian claw comes out and then the titles pop up: Godzilla, King of the Monsters in 3D. Right. Given that the Earth's crust is radioactive to begin with, it's safe to say that these monsters have to rely on radiation, just like Godzilla 2014.
Well, it does sound very 2014, but you don't see them do it in the movie, though.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. So, all that we know is that the baby Godzilla stole a nuke from the submarine, and then it died.
It died in doing it. And
okay.
Right. And it's funny how they come up with the name Godzilla.
That's something I wanted to know.
Well, let me read the line because I actually just stumbled upon it right now by chance.
Oh, first, is Odo Island is in Japan, obviously, right?
I forgot. I don't remember if it's in Japan, but Odo Island is a thing in this script.
Now, how does the movie in any way relate to Japan at any point?
Actually, yeah, the name Godzilla originates from
Okay, go ahead then.
So here's what Ballinger says about the origin of the name Godzilla. So, I think Kevin is the name of the kid. I can't remember. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But he's talking to in this scene. He's talking to someone called Kevin. So Ballinger says, "Mom and Dad are having a talk." Kevin says, "What'd you say before? Godzilla?" Ballinger pauses and then says, "It's an old Japanese legend. The fishermen of Kumeshima used to speak of this great monster that rose from a volcano. A monster the size of a mountain, they said. They called him Godzilla, king of the dragons, the monster god." And Kevin says, "Dragon, could he breathe fire?" Then Ballinger wistfully says, "Not anymore, he can't." And then it moves on to the next scene.
Not anymore, he can't. Well, he breathes fire in the movie after that, I imagine. Do you see him breathe fire? What does that line mean?
I'm not sure. I'm assuming that he thinks that Godzilla has evolved to the point where he can't breathe fire anymore.
Well, I mean, obviously the legend that he's talking about.
Oh no!
In no way relates to the creatures that we're seeing in the present day.
He's referring to the baby here because
Oh, they haven't seen the adult yet.
Yeah, the adult is it hasn't appeared yet. Right now they're referring to the baby.
So the baby is the one who attacks the sub.
Yeah.
Okay. At what point does the adult appear in any way? So we see the reptilian claw come out at the beginning, and then everything after that is the baby.
Right. Well, the baby is the central focus throughout like the first two acts, and then the adult.
So the first hour and 15 minutes then?
Yeah, because they think that the baby is the only species out there. They have no idea that the adult exists until it reaches San Francisco.
That's super lame. That's like that's like Gorgo, except there's no baby attacking stuff early.
Right.
That's bullshit. That's kind of horrible.
But we do see the adult Godzilla attacking certain areas in between the first and second act. Like the first time we see Godzilla.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
The adult Godzilla attacks like this oil refinery.
Okay.
But I don't think you
at the end of the first act.
Around there, like
okay.
I mean, you get to see attacks from the adult Godzilla. You know, it attacks this oil refinery.
But nobody knows it's out there.
No, they all assume that the baby did the damage.
Oh, so they're idiots. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So at what point so the adult, they don't know about it until the third act?
Right.
Oh, okay. When it attacks San Francisco. So what's that like? What's the tone of that? Is that 54 or is that like, I don't know, fucking Gamera 65? Like what's that feel like?
Like the tone of the whole film.
No, specifically the tone of the attack scene. Is it apocalyptic or is it just more like, oh shit, disaster?
It kind of just feels more like a disaster film. I don't want to say 54 because
Yeah, no, I mean that's like more like apocalyptic sort of.
more, yeah, it has a more emotional feel to it. Where here it just feels more like, as if,
Monster on the loose.
yeah, well, more like of a twister was on the loose in San Francisco, which
The destruction is it satisfying?
oh yeah, because the thing where Fred Decker really delivers is on Godzilla's destruction during the third act. Because when I read that, I felt like that's what 1998 should have done. Instead of chasing the fucking Ferris Bueller and his girlfriend, he should have just destroyed New York City.
If only he would have had some more like basic aesthetic stuff to go along with, the crap around him. That movie would be 10 times more watchable than it is.
Right.
But if there was more like actual destroying and like that's the thing 98 so heartfully misses.
Right. It's also weird how in this script how Godzilla uses his atomic breath for the first time. It's kind of weird. The main antagonist, the Russian, he's in the city trying to get back the kid because, of course, he escapes at one point. And Godzilla just grabs the Russian and reading it, I'm assuming that he's going to eat him. But no, instead he burns him with his atomic breath. And there's even
fire breath, right?
Fire breath. I'm assuming, like I said, it's been a while, and since
so Godzilla protects the kid specifically, or why are they near Godzilla, and why does Godzilla get involved?
I forgot. All I remember is that I forgot the context. I just remember the scene because it's so weird. Because Godzilla just grabs the dude, looks at him for like a beat, and then just blows fire on him. And I thought it was kind of weird because
yeah, that is a little weird. But I mean, it's I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be like a big like, oh, the villain's getting what he deserves at the hands of the monster.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost feels like they wrote that whole subplot just to give Godzilla somebody specific to kill.
Right. And after that, Godzilla then starts using his atomic breath more, or fire breath.
Is it the first time he uses it?
Yeah, during the third act.
What's the first bit that he uses it?
On the Russian. After that, he starts...
That's the first time he uses it in the entire movie.
Yeah, that's the reason why I remember that scene, because it's so weird.
That's fucking weird as shit. Why would he choose in that moment time to use my fire breath? Why wouldn't he use that against... Does he fight the military prior to that?
Oh, yeah.
Why? And he doesn't use the fire breath then?
As he destroys the city, he's also fighting the military at the same time. But, that proves to be useless because all the missiles bounce off his skin.
Right. So, radioactivity wise, he just sort of like there's no. He's not mutated at all. Like he's just sort of your homegrown dinosaur.
Yeah, he's basically just a dinosaur, and that's how Steve Miner wanted to portray him. He said that if they were gonna do like a complete Western reimagining of Godzilla, he would have to be a dinosaur, which I kind of disagree with, because I feel like now with Godzilla,
well, he's not a dinosaur now, not really.
Well, yeah, not now, but this variation, he's supposed to be a dinosaur.
I get it. I mean, listen. If we're speaking generically, he's always supposed to be a dinosaur. The idea is just whether or not he's a mutation, and the mutation angle was always infinitely more interesting.
Right.
That's the big thing 2014 really misses on. Like, I don't know why they didn't include that. Like, oh, it's dumb. This is dumb anyway. Who cares? It's not the point. And I think that this script, my opinions, now that I know so much more about it after talking about it, it just would have been really dumb, but sort of dumb in a self-righteous way. Dumb in an attempt to not be dumb, and that only makes it more dumb. And there's a lot of movies in the 80s and 90s that feel this way, where it's like they're trying to be smart about certain things, but they only end up drawing attention to how certain elements are even more stupid. I mean, one example, I love this movie too, Face Off. Just watched it for the first time recently. I love it. But man, it's got that in spades. It's constantly trying to distract you from really stupid, mind-numbingly dumb stuff with other stuff that's not so dumb. So this kind of sounds like it has that to me. But anyway, David, is there anything else you wanted to recount to us about Godzilla King of the Monsters 3D?
Part of me wishes that this would have been made, because I'm really curious to see how this would have turned out, because Steve Miner planned to use a variety of special effects. He planned to use a man in a rubber suit. He planned to use stop motion. He planned to use all the available technology at the time. But the budget at the time for this film was projected to be $30 million.
Which would not have allowed for that at all. That's nonsense.
Yeah, even at that time, it was still expensive.
I think that's a bad idea from the get-go. You don't need that. Like, just pick something. I would almost say don't even do the suit. Like, because you're not going to do it good. Like, although they had Rick Baker, right?
I mean, he just did the, again, someone correct me if I'm wrong. He did, this Godzilla bust for the head.
You would have had to put that on a guy in a suit, though.
Probably, yeah.
So I think if they would have had Rick Baker doing a suit, they should have stuck with that for everything.
Although I don't think he was going to play the suit, though. I mean, that would have been awesome, because then you would have one guy who played both King Kong and Godzilla.
Rick Baker did. I don't think Rick Baker was Rick Baker in that Kong suit?
Yeah, he owned that suit.
Okay.
And he let the studio borrow it.
I see.
Yeah, he actually did play King Kong in the '76 remake.
Okay, I thought there was somebody else in that suit.
No,
I did a commentary on that movie too. Look at me. What else was I gonna say? Either that or do stop motion. That would have been cool. I'm gonna finally do a Godzilla movie in stop motion. $30 million would have been enough to just do that, like on its own.
I mean,
it wouldn't have been great. It would have been like 70s level stop motion in the 80s probably, but whatever. I mean, I would have been down for that.
Like RoboCop stop motion?
Yeah, like RoboCop 2 kind of shit. Yeah, no.
The saving grace of this thing would have been Jeff Goldblum.
If he would have been in it? Oh, fuck yeah. See, David, I almost wish they would have made it just so we would have gotten it out of the way, and then 98 wouldn't have been a thing.
Right.
But at the same time, no 84 then. No Heisei Godzilla.
True. I think this film would have flopped anyway.
Oh, for sure.
Because Godzilla in 1985 kind of flopped in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is every time they try Godzilla in America, it never quite performs how I think they think it will. Even 2014 didn't light the world on fire. It did well. But it didn't it didn't do superhero numbers, and I think that's what Warner Brothers was expecting. Like they were expecting I bet they were expecting like Iron Man money, maybe not Iron Man, maybe like a Captain America Winter Soldier box office, and they didn't get that.
I mean, it did well for like its first film. I think with sequels, the studios would be expecting more money. Well,
based on how they're pitching the rest of this MonsterVerse, I don't think selling these things is going to be a problem, especially since Kong did really well.
Right.
Also,
I think what kind of sort of hurt Godzilla 2014 because it did experience like the 66% drop at the box office on its second weekend.
I think Kong had an even more severe one, but that was more understandable because of Beauty and the Beast.
Right. Well, I think in the case of Godzilla 2014, it's because of word of mouth. Because
yeah, that's true.
Godzilla screen time may have been a factor.
And I mean, I think that's always the case. These monster movies are always super polarizing, and people always are like, the monster stuff is fine, but the human stuff sucks, and that detracts people away. I think.
Right.
which I don't even think is true in 2014. I just think the human stuff is fucking dull. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not interesting. Not some of it, like a third of it is like really dull, and the rest of it's fine. Kong, I love all of it. Everything comes together for me for Kong. This is some weird shit in the second and third act of Kong. But this movie, I don't know, man. It sounds like exactly like it sounds exactly like what a 1980s American version of Godzilla would have been. Maybe not should have been, but would have been. Perfect world. Steven Spielberg would have been directing a Godzilla movie in the early 80s.
Right.
That's the perfect world.
Godzilla 2014 is the closest we'll ever get to a Spielberg-style Godzilla movie.
I don't know about that. I think he would have done something weird with it, because his obvious direction would have been, I'll just do Jaws, but with Godzilla. I don't think he would have done that. I think he would have really cut deep.
Like War of the Worlds, but with Godzilla?
Maybe. I was thinking more like, he liked Toshiro Honda anyway. He might have done more of like this is sort of the reaction of everybody in the world to Godzilla, do sort of like an almost documentary style, like capture the moment type of thing, like jump through a bunch of different perspectives, almost like Independence Day, like jump through different perspectives as Godzilla is a thing. Because the thing he always liked about the original Godzilla was that it's one of the few monster movies that makes you feel like it's really happening.
Uh-huh.
It makes you feel like, oh, this is set in the real world, and this is just this weird thing thrown into the real world. It feels very genuine. That's what Honda was always good at evoking, is this sense of genuine, like, this is actually happening in a world that makes sense, that we can identify with. And this movie, this King of the Monsters script, I think Spielberg would have very much so fought to maintain that. I think that the Steve Miner, Fred Dekker script, it thinks that it's doing that, but in reality, it's just more Hollywood glossy, especially since you got a writer who doesn't like the material. You're never going to get a really solid movie without that. That's what's killed all the Transformers movies, don't you think? Like, we don't have fans writing those. We have Hollywood people who know how to make a Hollywood movie, and they're just making the same Hollywood movie over and over again with Transformers flourishes. Like, that's what this would have been in the 1980s with Godzilla.
I hate to admit this, but the latest trailer for Transformers: The Last Night kind of sort of has me interested in it. But I know.
Oh, really? Every trailer I've seen, every trailer I've seen for it has made me go, this looks like exactly the same as every other one. I hated Age of Extinction. I thought it was boring as fuck. It's better than 2 and 3 on like an objective level, but it's 10 times more boring.
Right. I know The Last Night is already going to be exactly like the last few fucking Transformers movies we've seen.
Oh, sure.
Because it's Michael Bay.
But they're doing Unicron, though. I gotta see how they're gonna do Unicron.
Or Anthony Hopkins' Unicron, maybe.
Oh my God! Is that if that's what they're doing? Yeah, I guess I'm in then. I guess I'll have to at least see it.
If Anthony Hopkins is the one luring Unicron to her.
Yeah. All right. Well, David, good fucking job on that, man. You may be disappointed that you didn't get to prepare more for that, but that was a wonderful dissertation on Godzilla King of the Monsters in 3D. I feel like I've seen the movie now. So, are you cool to move on to the thing that I started to read but didn't finish?
Curiosity has me. I'm sickened but curious.
Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. Have you read it?
No. I mean, how many versions of the Island of Dr. Moreau are there anyway?
That script in particular, that 90s version, or all of them?
I mean, because there's so many different, remakes.
There's three movies. There's three movies called The Island of Dr. Moreau. There's Island of Lost Souls from 32. There's the 70s one with Burt Lancaster. And then there's the 90s one with Marlon Brando. The 90s one with Marlon Brando was not always a John Frankenheimer film with Marlon Brando. What's that guy's name? The guy from Harry Potter. David Thewlis. And Val Kilmer. It was originally going to be Bruce Willis, James Woods, and Marlon Brando, with fucking Richard Stanley writing and directing. He wrote the original draft. It was touched up by another writer. It got touched up by 4 other writers, and then eventually Richard Stanley got kicked off the project, and John Frankenheimer was added in. Richard Stanley is a fascinating individual. He's indie as fuck. He is the indiest of all indie filmmakers. He's sort of the Alan Moore of the film industry. He's a believer in black magic and fucking cults and fucking all that crazy shit. And he's a huge fan of H.G. Wells and a huge fan of The Island of Dr. Moreau. And he wanted to do the ultimate indie as fuck 90s but still big budget reimagining of The Island of Dr. Moreau. And my god, his take sounds fascinating. He wanted to do it in the present day. He wanted to do it as like, set in the future actually. Fucking genetic experiments gone awry. Dr. Moreau is this like new agey hippie type. Montgomery, Dr. Moreau's assistant, as this like drug addicted Vietnam War veteran. And then the castaway, the guy who crashes on the island, as this civil rights lawyer.
Tom Hanks?
Could have been Tom Hanks. It was supposed to be Bruce Willis though.
Oh, close enough.
That's who Richard Stanley wrote it for. Wouldn't that see? I know Richard Stanley had problems on set. Apparently, he didn't work well with a big crew. Everybody didn't get along with him. He was having mental breakdowns on the set. Apparently,
so he's basically like one of those type of filmmakers where he thinks he's the shit and demands perfection.
Well, it sounds like he had a really good vision in his head, and it just didn't work out. And like he just didn't work out. He couldn't work with the studio, and not even that the studio was to blame. Like I mean, they did fuck with him for sure, and they did because they didn't like him. They thought that he was like a little. they thought he was weird, and they thought he was insecure, and they didn't think that he would work well in a big production. And they turned out to be right. They put him on set. They gave him every chance, but he just couldn't do it. He couldn't make it happen. And there were clearly there was something going on. They don't pinpoint it in the documentary I watched, which by the way you should watch. Lost Soul, the journey of Richard, the doomed journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau.
Well, I'm gonna watch that now because I'm curious. This sounds like a Seth Rogen, James Franco type of movie.
I would love that. That'd be amazing. So anyway, do you want to know about the script itself?
Yeah.
You don't sound so sure. So they don't really know what happened, but I'll tell you this. I know you should watch the documentary. Watch the documentary. It's on Netflix.
It is.
Oh yeah. So just watch it and figure out what happened to Richard Stanley. It's a wild, wonderful story. But his script itself that he initially wrote. It was touched up by another writer. I can't remember his name. What's it like? So here was his pitch. H.G. Wells, if he was alive now and he was going to write Dr. Moreau now, he would not set it in the 18th century. He would have set it now because that was his idea. His idea was to capture the moment back when he wrote that book. Capture the modern era. Capture what's possible. What could we do? Where could things be going? What might be scary to propose? Oh, I know. Vivisectionists living on some island somewhere, turning fucking animals into people because nobody's there to stop them. So what's equally scary now? Geneticists on an island, turning animals into people with nobody there to stop them. So that's the sort of premise of it. And instead of, in the book, I can't remember what exactly the castaway is. Because the other thing with the script is that it obviously has to be very different because of that idea of setting it in the present day and doing like, well, if H.G. Wells was alive now, how would he do this concept now? So that's sort of the whole thing. Reinterpret it from the ground up as a modern day guy turning animals into people on an island. And then they overthrow him. It's sort of modern day Planet of the Apes, but 10 times scarier. Well, in certain respects. And So the thing is, though, the issue is it's exactly the same as the book in every other way. Plot-wise, it's exactly the same. Scene-wise, it's exactly the same. What he sort of did in a sort of fan-fiction-y kind of way is he took the book and then he put his version of the characters and his version of the universe into it. See what I mean?
Isn't that how kind of all filmmakers approach adaptations?
No, I disagree. Because they cut scenes and they reshape scenes to fit the pace of a movie. He don't do that. It's the book, but it's a movie.
Whoa, wait. So the script was just as long as the book, or close to it?
The book's not that long. Number one, and two, I'm pretty sure. It's a longer script, I think.
The average script, well, if you're a rookie in Hollywood, your script has to be like under at least 120 or 130 pages.
See, I think it's hovering around that, and that was the problem.
Because when you become like, someone like Christopher Nolan or Michael Bay, you can get away with, even having your script being like 400 pages. Because Christopher Nolan once said that his first draft for The Dark Knight Rises was 400 pages long.
Right. So, okay, here's the problem, though. Here's why it doesn't work for me in this instance. Because the book does not open with a guy sitting in the middle of the ocean. Oh, but you know what? It does actually open. Okay. So I'm sorry. I'm thinking back to this now when it does actually open like this. So in the book and in the movie, in this version of it anyway, the script, it opens as like sort of a retrospective flashback where it's the guy like after he's been through all the events, presumably, fucking depressed and isolated, remembering it, like it's told through flashbacks, sort of, except we don't cut back to him in the present day. We start there and he sort of bookends it, That's how the book does it, which is good because it helps engage you right away. This just didn't do it as effectively to me, though. This struggled to keep me engaged. And maybe it's because I've read the book fairly recently. So maybe that, like because of that, I just sort of I was like, I know this already. But it struggled to keep me engaged, I'll have to say. But the versions of the characters are certainly interesting. Weed plays a big part in the story, so I was definitely intrigued from that point of view. But at the same time, pacing-wise, it's a fucking mess. And structurally, it has zero punch whatsoever. I imagine all the punch is once you get to the island. It needed a little more punch. But again, I only read the beginning of it. Maybe it got better. Maybe once you get to the island, shit really hits the fan. But in the book, I remember shit hitting the fan the entire time. And the movie simply didn't have that in that version of the script. There was a lot more cursing and sex and drug references, by the way. It almost struck me as like Kevin Smith writing Island of Dr. Moreau. Which I would love to see now. But anyway, so David, we're over an hour in, buddy. So any thoughts on Dr. Moreau? How does that sound to you? Do you want to read that now? Or what's your familiarity with the Island of Dr. Moreau?
My first exposure to anything related to the Island of Dr. Moreau was through the Simpsons Halloween special. Like every year they make a Halloween special.
Yeah, Treehouse of Terror. Yeah.
Apparently they parodied the Island of Dr. Moreau, and I didn't realize that until like years later when I realized that there was a book called The Island of Dr. Moreau, which that episode was parodying. And now every time I think about the Island of Dr. Moreau, I think of The Simpsons.
So you know the story. You get what it's. You get the deal.
Yeah. I get the overall concept. I haven't read the book, nor have I even bothered to read a summary of the plot from Wikipedia.
I'm gonna say if you're gonna experience the story, either read the original book or watch the 32 movie. The one with Bela Lugosi, yeah. You haven't seen Island of Lost Souls for real?
It's called The Island of Lost Souls?
Yeah.
That's what it was based on? The Island of Dr. Moreau?
You've seen that?
No, I have not, but I've...
Oh yeah, but yeah, that's based on the Island of Dr. Moreau, though. Yeah.
Oh,
I like that movie a lot. You should watch it.
I will have to now because Bela Lugosi is in it.
Yeah, he's the Sayer of the Law. The Sayer of the Law is like almost like the lawgiver for the Beast People in the Island of Dr. Moreau. He sort of like restates the laws that Moreau has laid out for them, because Moreau, they all think of him as their father, and they view him as God, and he portrays himself that way. And the Sayer of the Law is his prophet.
Is that movie in public domain by any chance?
No, but I think it's on YouTube though.
Huh.
You can find it very, very, very easily, I'm sure.
Aren't any of the H.G. Wells books in public domain?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they all are now. Yeah, they must be. But the movies are not though, because they're. I think the copyright of the films is not. It's 100 years. So yeah, the Island of Dr. Moreau itself is public domain.
Because I remember, when I bought the Alpha Video DVDs for Gamera, there came this little catalog with each DVD, and in the horror sections there were nothing but Bela Lugosi movies, and part of me was excited but sad at the same time, because I was like, oh, poor Bela Lugosi had to make these terrible movies that everybody forgot.
Oh yeah, like fucking the Devil Bat.
The Ed Wood movies. I saw this movie called The Raven. Where,
that's different. That's a fucking Edgar Allan Poe movie.
The thing was, it's not based upon the Edgar Allan Poe story, so I have no idea why it was called The Raven. Because
isn't it referenced in that though?
Is it? I saw that movie like 12 years ago, I think, when I was a little kid, and I only saw it once. But I specifically remember Boris Karloff being in that movie, and he's playing some sort of Igor-like character.
Oh no, that's based on the Edgar Allan Poe story. It's just not, but it's a poem, so it's like there's not much to go on. And I'm pretty sure that he's fascinated by the character in The Raven.
Oh, Bela Lugosi's character, or
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's how that breaks down. Anyway, so what's your opinion of have you seen anything from the Marlon Brando movie? Like that, you know that's garbage, right?
No, actually I haven't seen any of the Dr. Moreau adaptations.
It is one of the worst things ever put to film.
The Marlon Brando version?
Yes. It is one of those things that is so bad, it's astounding. And I haven't even seen the entire thing. I've never sat down and watched it beginning to end. I've only seen bits, and I'm just like, wow. This is a nightmare, but awesome. In all the worst ways. So, we'll leave you with that then. David, if you have nothing else to say, I think we're going to wrap it up then there. We talked about 2 scripts then. And I think we should keep it at that. Do 2 scripts per episode. You come with 1, I come with a rough estimation of 1, and then and that's how we go. We knock it out as a little over an hour, but I think that one would pretty well. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, this time I'm going to read the next script.
That I would have to agree. So, do you have anything to tease the audience with for the next episode then?
You mean from my channel, or tease
any scripts that you have in mind? You don't have to say the title, but just like where are we going to go next, man?
Well, I'm considering bringing up 2. One is based on a video game, and the other one is was supposed to be a live action remake of a very popular anime film. I don't want to give off the titles for either.
Ooh, I have ideas, but I can't be certain, so I can't wait to find out.
I mean, I'll tell you after we're done recording. It's the audience that don't want to know.
No. Surprise me on the episode as well.
All right.
Yeah, because I want it to be a surprise. All right. So we'll re-adjourn next week then. That is it for the first episode of Lost, Found, But Never Filmed. As always, you can like us on Facebook at the Sons of Sarazawa Network homepage. You can get all our content there. Like Godzilla Odyssey as well, to get all those podcasts early. You can follow me on Twitter at Bill_Worster. You can obviously find David at Gorzard on YouTube. That's your main channel now, right? It's just called Gorzard.
Yeah, that's for my movie reviews and all that crap, because a long time ago someone suggested I should, just separate all my content, just have one channel dedicated to music, have one channel dedicated to movie reviews. I didn't listen at the time, and I kind of regret it now, because...
Well, you went through 10 channels fucking doing that.
Until I learned my lesson.
Yeah, so now he's got one channel specifically just for, like, this is me being me, and that's the one that's called Gorzard, so it works out well. Or Gorizzard, if you prefer.
Oh, no.
He doesn't prefer that, so I won't. But we hope you'll continue to stick with us. Obviously, continue to subscribe, and you'll continue to be able to follow the show. So we'll see you next week. I'm Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubaar.
I'm Gorizard, not Gorizzard.
Not Gorizzard.